The city breathed differently at 1 a.m. Ethan Calloway had learned that years ago, before Lily, before the grief, before the second and third jobs that carved his weeks into neat, exhausting segments. Late at night, the streets stopped performing. No taxis honking, no suits rushing past with coffee, no ambient theater of people pretending they were fine, just the honest skeleton of a city at rest. Wet pavement, yellow light pooling under street lamps, and the particular silence of snow falling on things that couldn't feel it. His truck smelled like cardboard and cold air. The heater worked, barely, exhaling warmth in uneven pulses. Ethan didn't mind. He kept his hands loose on the wheel, shoulders dropped, eyes scanning the white road ahead with the calm of someone who had learned long ago that panic was an indulgence he couldn't afford. 12 deliveries tonight. 2 fragile packages wine, he guessed, or some kind of homeware someone had ordered for the holidays. The rest, books, electronics, a suspiciously heavy box addressed to a 7th-floor apartment in Midtown. He'd carried them all without complaint. He always did. At 34, Ethan Calloway was not a man who inspired second glances. Medium height. Dark circles beneath brown eyes. A jaw that had forgotten when it last saw a razor. He wore a fleece-lined jacket that was one winter past its best. Work boots with a sole starting to separate at the toe. And a wool hat Lily had picked out for him, charcoal gray. A little too small, but he wore it every shift because she'd handed it to him with both hands and said, "You look like a superhero, Daddy." He kept it on regardless of the temperature. That was the shape of his life, in its simplest form. A child who believed in him completely, and a man who would do almost anything to deserve it. Lily was 6. She had her mother's eyes pale green, the kind that shifted in certain light, and a laugh that started somewhere low and built upward until it filled whatever room she was in. She'd started first grade in September and had already developed strong opinions about everything. The correct way to make grilled cheese, no butter, only mayonnaise, she'd read this somewhere, the unfairness of bedtimes, the superior intelligence of cats over dogs, and the absolute necessity of finishing every story before the lights went out. She was sleeping now. Mrs. Alderson from apartment 4B was sitting with her. The way she did on nights Ethan worked late, a retired schoolteacher with arthritic knees and a deep affection for both crossword puzzles and small children. Ethan paid her in cash and groceries. She never asked for more. He turned off Route 9 toward the shortcut home, the truck's tires crunching through new snow that no one had thought to clear yet. The neighborhood changed quickly out here, apartment blocks giving way to warehouses, warehouses giving way to the long, gray stretch of Industrial Avenue, where nothing much happened after dark. A pharmacy with a neon cross still blinking, a laundromat, dark and closed, and then the bus stop, a metal shelter on the corner of Meridian and Alt, with 3 plastic seats inside and a city transit map that hadn't been updated since 2019. Ethan almost didn't see her. He was checking the mirror, watching for ice, and the headlights swept across the shelter at the wrong angle. For a moment, all he registered was a shape, a still, dark shape where there shouldn't have been one. Then his brain caught up. Someone was sitting there. He slowed. The truck rolled to a stop at the corner, engine idling. Through the windshield, in the gray-blue dark, he could see a woman head down, shoulders drawn in, arms wrapped tight against her chest. No coat worth the name. A blazer, dress shoes, hair damp from the snow. He sat for a moment, engine running. He'd lived in this city long enough to know what the rules were. Don't stop. Don't engage. People ended up in strange situations at strange hours, and most of them didn't want a strange man in a delivery truck offering his help. He understood that. He respected it, but the snow was coming harder now. The temperature on his dashboard read 11 degrees Fahrenheit, and she wasn't moving. He pulled over. He got out slowly. He didn't run. He'd learned that quick movement alarmed people. He walked at the pace of someone who had nowhere to be and no particular agenda. Hands visible at his sides, wool hat on his head, probably looking about as threatening as a tired schoolteacher. He was 5 feet away before he got a clear look at her face. His brain did a strange thing then. It produced a name without being asked. Sophia Carter. He knew who she was for the same reason he knew the name of the president, and the year the Cubs last won the series. She was simply part of the ambient knowledge of the city. Her company, Carter Strategic Advisors, occupied the top 3 floors of the Aldrich Building on 5th. She'd been on the cover of a business magazine last spring. He'd seen it in the break room at Denmore Logistics, where he worked day shifts doing inventory. Someone had left it on the table face up, and Ethan had noted it for the same reason you noted most things in a break room. There was nothing else to look at. In the magazine, she'd looked composed, controlled, a woman who chose every element of every moment. She did not look that way now. She looked like someone who had been walking in the cold for an hour longer than she should have. Lips faintly gray, eyes open but distant, focused on the middle distance with the particular blankness of a person running low on reserves. Her blazer was expensive charcoal wool, thin lapels, but it was doing essentially nothing against 11-degree air. Her shoes were heeled pumps, the kind designed for marble lobbies and conference rooms, not for standing on a snow-covered sidewalk at 1 a.m. "Hey," Ethan said, quietly. Not hello, not excuse me. Just hey, the way you'd say it to someone who needed to know you were there before anything else. She looked up, her eyes focused slowly, like a camera adjusting aperture. "I'm not," she started. Stopped. Tried again. "I'm fine." "Okay," he said. He didn't move closer. Bus doesn't run past midnight on this route. Last one was 11:45. She looked at the empty street. Something shifted in her expression, not embarrassment, exactly. More like the specific exhaustion of someone who has just been presented with a fact they had been trying not to accept. "I know," she said. "Do you have a phone?" She pulled it from her blazer pocket. The screen was black, dead as a stone. Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out his own, a cracked screen model 2 generations old, held together partly by a rubber case and partly by faith. He offered it to her. She looked at it for a moment, then at him. "I don't," she said. "You don't have to call anyone," he said. "But if you want to, it works fine." She took it, tried 3 numbers. The calls connected, rang out, and went to voicemail each time. On the 3rd attempt, her hand came down slowly, and she sat very still for a moment, looking at nothing. Ethan had seen that look before, not on CEOs, on people who'd hit a moment where the version of the world they'd been operating in had stopped matching the one around them. He took off his jacket. "Don't," she said. "I've got a fleece under it," he said, which was true. He held it out, not pressing it on her, just making it available. A choice, not a charity. She took it after a moment, put it on. It was too large for her, fell past her hips, swallowed her shoulders. She looked briefly, like someone else entirely. "Ethan Callaway," he said. "I drive for West Point Delivery. I'm done for the night. Heading home." She looked at him again. Really looked this time. The way someone does when they're trying to read a situation through the fog of cold and exhaustion. "Sophia Carter," she said, as if he might not know. "I know," he said. "Do you want to tell me what happened, or do you want to get warm first?" The smallest pause. "Warm," she said. He kept the truck warm on the drive heater at full blast, which meant uneven surges of hot air with a faint smell of engine. He said nothing. She said nothing. The city scrolled past the windows, half asleep under its coat of white. She held his phone loosely in her lap. The screen stayed dark. After a few minutes, she spoke. "I had a meeting tonight," she said. Her voice was level. Practiced the voice of someone trained to sound in control, even when they weren't. "Off-site, private. My driver was supposed to wait, and didn't. She looked out the window. "My assistant's phone goes straight to voicemail. So does my head of security." A pause. "Both of them." Ethan said nothing. He kept his eyes on the road. "That's not," she said carefully, "a coincidence." "No," he agreed. She looked at him sideways. "You don't seem surprised." "I don't know enough to be surprised," he said. "I just know that when 2 people whose job is to be reachable both go unreachable at the same time, it's usually not a battery issue." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Who are you?" "I told you. Delivery driver. That's what you do." "I asked who you are." He glanced at her once, briefly. "Someone who's going to get you warm and let you figure out your next move." She turned back to the window. He didn't push it. Some answers took time to become the right shape for saying out loud. He pulled up in front of a 4-story brick building on Calloway Street. No irony in the name, just the city's indifferent geography. The lobby had a door that stuck in cold weather, a mailbox bank, where 3 slots were still labeled with names from previous tenants, and an elevator that hadn't worked since October. They took the stairs to the 3rd floor. His apartment was number 312. He unlocked it and pushed the door open slowly, mindful of the hour. The lights were off except for the kitchen. Mrs. Alderson always left the under-cabinet light on, a habit Ethan had stopped questioning. The apartment was small, a living area with a couch that had seen better decades, a kitchen where the counter space was sacrificed to a drying rack perpetually full of small clothes, a narrow hallway leading to 2 doors, one his, one Lily's. The walls had drawings tacked up in irregular arrangements, crayon landscapes, portraits of cats, one ambitious attempt at a horse that had become something more abstract. A bookshelf ran the length of one wall, doubled stacked with picture books and paperbacks. On the coffee table, a half-finished puzzle of a lighthouse, 3 crayons, and a drawing that Ethan picked up and moved to the counter without looking at it. Just tidying, without fuss. Sophia stood in the doorway for a moment. She had been in a lot of rooms in her life. Boardrooms, hotel suites, offices with floor-to-ceiling views, dining rooms in houses where the furniture cost more than most people's cars. She had a practiced facility for assessing rooms. It was a professional habit, almost involuntary. This room was small and needed new paint, and the couch cushions were mismatched, and there were children's shoes lined up by the door in a row of ascending size that stopped at very small. It was the warmest room she'd been in years. She didn't say anything about that. Ethan put a kettle on and found a blanket fleeced, patterned with cartoon planets, clearly Lily's, and set it on the couch without comment. Sophia sat down, pulled it around her shoulders, said nothing. From behind the closed door at the end of the hall came the soft sound of a child, sleeping, the occasional shift of weight, the creak of a small bed. Sophia looked at the door. "How old?" she asked. 6, Ethan said from the kitchen. "Her mom?" He didn't answer right away. Not defensively, just with the slight delay of someone accessing something stored carefully. "She passed," he said. 3 years ago." Sophia said nothing. There was nothing useful to say, so she didn't try. At 2:30, Lily appeared in the hallway. She had her father's careful way of moving quiet feet, taking in the situation before announcing herself. She stood in the hallway entrance in a nightgown printed with stars, hair loose, one sock half off, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. She looked at Sophia. Sophia looked at her. Lily tilted her head slightly. "Are you cold?" she asked. Sophia blinked. "I was," she said. "I'm better now." Lily considered this, then crossed the room, climbed onto the couch beside Sophia without invitation, and pressed herself matter-of-factly against her side. "I do this with Daddy when he's tired," she explained. Body heat. Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway. Took in the scene. Something crossed his face. Amusement, maybe, or tenderness, or both in the ratio that parents carry most of the time. "Lily, it's 2:30. "I know," Lily said, not moving. He didn't push it. Brought 2 mugs of tea, set them on the table, and sat in the chair across. The 3 of them were quiet for a moment, in the under-cabinet kitchen light. "You work at the big building," Lily told Sophia. It wasn't a question. Sophia glanced at Ethan. "She's seen the news," he said simply. "I do," Sophia said. "Do you have a fish?" Lily asked. "I don't. We were going to get one," Lily said. "But then we decided to wait. Do you like puzzles?" "Lily," Ethan said mildly. "She's a guest," Lily said, perfectly reasonable. Sophia almost smiled. "Not quite, but almost." "I used to," she said. "I haven't done one in a long time. We have a lighthouse one," Lily said. "It's hard. Most things worth finishing are," Sophia said. Lily seemed to find this acceptable. She tucked herself more firmly against Sophia's side and was asleep again in under 2 minutes. With the uncomplicated efficiency of a child who has made a decision and executed it, Sophia sat very still. She'd stopped, being sure what to do with her hands. Ethan watched her over his mug. "She does that," he said quietly. "Decides she trusts someone and just does." "How does she know?" "I asked her once," he said. "She said, some people feel like wind and some people feel like walls." Sophia looked down at the small, sleeping shape against her. "Which are you?" she asked. He took a moment. "She says I'm a window." "What does that mean?" "I asked her," he said. "She said it means you can see through me, but I don't let the cold in." He lifted a shoulder. "I chose to take it as a compliment." Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then, carefully, "I need to think through what happened tonight." "I know." He stood, moved to carry Lily back to her room. She barely stirred, and came back. Sat down again. "Tell me from the beginning." She did. Sophia was precise under pressure. Ethan recognized that it was the quality people developed when panic became a luxury they'd stopped allowing themselves. She laid it out without embellishment. The call from a board member requesting an emergency off-site meeting, an address in a part of the city she hadn't been to before, a conference room in a building she didn't recognize. The meeting itself conducted mostly without her full understanding of what was being decided. Then, the corridor empty when she came out. The car gone. Her phone at 9%. Then 6. Then nothing. "The building," Ethan said. "What was it called?" "Verity Partners," she said. "Or, that's what the sign on the door said." He pulled up his cracked screen phone, searched the name. Nothing in the business registry. No address match. A shell name, the kind you could have printed on a placard in 48 hours. "Who called you?" he asked. "Marcus Webb. He's my CFO. Has been for 4 years. Ethan looked up from the phone. "You trust him." "I trusted him," she said. The tense shift was quiet, but exact. He handed the phone to her, showed her the search result, or the absence of one. She looked at it for a long moment. Her expression didn't change, not dramatically, but something in her posture settled into a different position, the way a building shifts when a foundational thing gives way. "When is your next board meeting?" he asked. 9 a.m., she said. 7 hours. "And if you're not there?" She was quiet. "What happens if you simply don't show?" he pressed, not unkindly. "There's a clause," she said slowly. "Emergency succession. If the CEO is incapacitated or absent from a scheduled board session without prior notice." She stopped. Started again. "The board can initiate a temporary leadership transfer with a simple majority." "How many votes does Webb have?" She did the math without speaking it. Her eyes changed. "Enough," she said. Ethan set the phone on the table between them. Let her look at the facts from a slight distance, the way you angled a painting to see it properly. "They didn't need you to disappear forever," he said. "They just needed you gone for one meeting." She looked at him, then really looked, the way she'd started to do in the truck, like she was recalibrating something. "You're not a delivery driver," she said. "Tonight I am," he said. "Before tonight." He was quiet for a moment. "Systems engineer. Infrastructure and security. 7 years at Halbrook Industries, then 2 at a tech firm called Meridian Systems." He paused. "I left that world 3 years ago. It didn't fit anymore." She waited. "When Claire died," he said, "I needed to be home. To be the person Lily came home to. The hours didn't work. So I found hours that did." He said it simply, without the performance of sacrifice. Sophia looked at the wall of children's drawings, at the puzzle on the table, at the careful, deliberate smallness of this room, built entirely around a child's comfort. "That company," she said slowly. "Meridian Systems. Who was their client?" Ethan looked at her. "Carter Strategic Advisors," he said. They moved to the kitchen table. Sophia's memory was extraordinary, she recalled. Account numbers, system names, meeting dates with the kind of precision that came from spending years never being able to afford a lapse. Ethan listened, asked clean questions, and built a picture on the back of an envelope because the paper was there and the habit was old. 12 minutes in, he stopped writing. There was a security breach, he said, at Carter Strategic, about 3 years ago. She nodded slowly. We patched it. Our security team identified the vulnerability. And your security team didn't identify it, he said. I did. Silence. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the envelope, at the web of names and dates he'd drawn in pencil. Meridian Systems sent a contractor to your infrastructure team in the spring of that year, 6-week engagement. The contractor flagged a critical input handling vulnerability in your client data portal, wrote a 40-page incident report, recommended a full protocol overhaul. He set the pencil down. Your head of IT at the time, Thomas Garrity, presented it to the board as his team's work. The contractor's name appeared nowhere. Sophia was very still. And the contractor, she said, wasn't retained, Ethan said. Contract ended. Meridian Systems dissolved the engagement. I didn't fight it. Claire was sick by then. I had other things to think about. He said it without bitterness. That was what she noticed first, the complete, almost architectural absence of bitterness. As if he'd processed the injustice and then set it somewhere tidy, somewhere it didn't interfere with the daily work of living. I didn't know, she said. I know you didn't. He met her eyes. I'm not telling you for an apology. I'm telling you because it matters to what happens in the next 7 hours. He tapped the envelope. Webb knows that story, or enough of it. He knows your company had a vulnerability that was fixed by someone outside your official structure. And he's been using that as leverage quietly, I think, to keep Garrity loyal. And Garrity has access to your server logs, your calendar, your communication architecture. She understood it now. All of it, arranged in front of her like a spread of cards that had always been in the same deck, just dealt face down. He's been planning this for months, she said. Probably longer. And he used tonight because... She traced through it. Because I had an off-site meeting on my calendar. Plausible that I'd be unreachable. Plausible that there was a logistics failure. Just plausible enough that by the time anyone asked questions, the board vote would already be done. And you'd be in the position of fighting a decision that had already been ratified, Ethan said. Uphill. On their timeline. She pressed her fingers to her temples. Not dramatically, just the physical reflex of organizing a large amount of information in a short amount of time. What do you need? She asked. He looked at her. I need access to your board meeting communications from the last 90 days, he said. And I need someone inside that building who's still on your side. My general counsel, she said immediately. Diane Forsyth. She's not warm, but she's not Webb's. She paused. And she picks up her phone. He slid the cracked screen phone across the table. Then let's start there. Diane Forsyth picked up on the second ring. She asked 3 questions, got 3 answers, and said, I'll be at the office by 6. Don't come through the front. That was it. No dramatics, no reassurance, no wasted words. Ethan approved. He and Sophia worked until 4:30 at the kitchen table. She had memorized dates, figures, and correspondences with the precision of someone who had always known, perhaps subconsciously, that trust was a currency with an expiration date. He organized, cross-referenced, constructed a timeline on 3 sheets of lined paper. He worked with the quiet efficiency of someone who had spent years building systems designed to find exactly this kind of fault. At some point she said, You should sleep. I'm fine. You worked a full shift tonight. So did you. He didn't look up from the papers. Different kind. She watched him for a moment. The lamp on the table made the room close and amber. Outside, the snow had stopped. The street was perfectly quiet. Why are you helping me? She asked. He considered the question with the same care he gave everything. Because you needed help, he said. And I was there. That's not enough of a reason. He looked up then. It is for me. She held his gaze for a moment, then looked away, back at the papers. The people who should have been there weren't, she said. That happens, he said. To everyone, eventually. The people you built your systems around turn out to have been building different systems the whole time. She was quiet. Then, carefully, does that make you afraid of building them again? He thought about Lily, asleep in the next room. About Mrs. Alderson with her crossword puzzles. About the specific, modest warmth of a life, assembled from small, trustworthy pieces. No, he said. It makes me more careful about what I build them out of. At 5 a.m., Lily appeared again in the hallway. She looked at the papers on the table, at the two adults, who were both clearly not going to bed, and made a quick decision. Can I have cereal? She asked. Yes, Ethan said. She got herself a bowl and a spoon and sat at the counter without requiring anything from either of them. She ate her cereal. She watched her father work. She looked at Sophia once and gave her a small, solemn nod. The nod of someone who had assessed the situation and found it acceptable. Sophia nodded back. At 5:40, Ethan stacked the papers neatly and looked at her. Ready? He said. No, she said honestly. But yes, Diane Forsyth was waiting in the loading dock entrance at the back of the Aldridge building, a tall woman in her 50s. Gray-streaked hair pulled back, overcoat over what appeared to be her overnight clothes. She looked at Sophia, then at Ethan, and said nothing about either. I've been in the building since 5:30, she said. Webb's assistant sent a calendar update at midnight pushing the start of the session to 8:45. Whoever scheduled that didn't want anyone to have time to react. What's the current attendee list? Sophia asked. Diane handed her a printed page. Sophia scanned it. Ethan watched her face. 7 of 9, she said. Webb's block. That's what I counted, Diane said. Arthur Reyes? Not on the list. He wasn't informed of the revised time. Sophia looked at Ethan. Arthur Reyes. She'd mentioned him during their kitchen table session. Board member from the founding days, old enough to have been colleagues with her father, the kind of institutional weight that meant something in a room. Can you reach him? Ethan asked. I already did, Diane said. He'll be here at 8:30. She led them through the service corridor, past stacked equipment and the institutional smell of cleaning product and old carpeting. Ethan had been in this building before, not the upper floors, but the infrastructure level, during the Meridian Systems engagement. He remembered the layout without trying to. Server room, on sub-level 2, communications hub, off the east corridor, IT administration, behind the frosted glass panel near the second elevator bank. They took a service elevator to the 32nd floor. The executive suite at this hour was lit only by the ambient overflow from surrounding offices' pale, lateral light that made the space feel unfinished. Like a stage set before the performance. Conference chairs arranged in the boardroom. Water glasses set out. A projector system already initialized, ready for what they'd planned. Ethan, Sophia said quietly. The communications records. Are they recoverable from the server logs? Already requested access, Diane said, glancing at him. Your clearance code from the Meridian engagement is technically still in the system. No one thought to revoke it. He looked at her. She looked back, without expression. That's thorough, he said. That's my job, she said. He sat down at the secondary workstation in the executive assistant's alcove. The system was older than he'd have chosen, but functional. He worked without commentary, with the focused quiet of someone navigating terrain they knew well. Sophia stood to his left, reading over the document Diane had provided. Occasionally asking questions he answered without looking up. By 8:15, they had it. The email chain dated back 11 months. The coordination with Garrity specific, documented, time-stamped. The conversation in which Webb had outlined the succession mechanism, the reply in which his co-conspirator had confirmed the vacancy clause and estimated the vote count, and the message, sent 48 hours ago, that confirmed the off-site arrangement for Sophia and gave the driver Webb's personal driver. It turned out specific instructions. Ethan printed 4 copies, handed one to Diane, kept one, folded the others. Is it enough? Sophia asked. It's more than enough, Diane said. The question is how you want to use it. Sophia looked at the printed pages. At the words someone had written, thinking they would never be read by the right person. I want to walk in at 8:43, she said. 2 minutes before they start, the boardroom was full when the door opened. 7 faces turned, and in the way that faces sometimes rearranged themselves entirely in the space of a breath, Webb's went from confident composure to something smaller and harder, like a mechanism clicking into a position it hadn't expected to reach. Sophia Carter walked to her chair at the head of the table. She did not rush. She set her folio on the table, smoothed her jacket still. Ethan's, technically, though she'd borrowed Diane's blazer over it, and looked around the room with the specific kind of calm that is not the absence of emotion but its precise management. Good morning, she said. A beat of silence. Sophia, Webb said. Controlled, still. We weren't sure you'd be able to make it. Given that you arranged for my driver to leave me stranded in an industrial district in 11-degree weather at midnight. She said it the way she'd say, a revenue figure, factually, without inflection. I made alternate arrangements. The room went very still. Arthur Reyes, seated 2 chairs down on her left, set his pen carefully on the table. He was 71 and had the patience of someone who had watched many rooms reorganize themselves around a moment of truth. Marcus, Sophia said, I want to give you the opportunity to speak before I present what I have. If there's something you'd like to say, now would be the time. Webb said nothing. His jaw moved slightly, the way a machine moves when it's been given a command it cannot execute. She opened the folio. Diane distributed the copies. Ethan stood near the door, not in the room exactly, more at the threshold, the way someone stands when they know their role is already complete. He watched the documents pass from hand to hand around the table. He watched faces, read them. He watched the moment, somewhere around the 3rd paragraph, when Arthur Reyes looked up at Webb with an expression that was not anger so much as the total, permanent withdrawal of regard. This is fraudulent, Webb said, finally. His voice had lost some of its grain. The server logs aren't, Diane said. The timestamps aren't. The email headers aren't. You don't have authorization to access those records. Actually, Sophia said, the authorization is valid. It was never revoked. She paused. An oversight, I'm sure. She let that sit for a moment. Then she looked at him directly, not with anger. Because anger was a tool, and she'd chosen something else. Marcus, she said. You're going to submit your resignation to Diane before you leave this room. So is Thomas Garrity. The legal process will be handled professionally, through proper channels, with every courtesy you're entitled to. She folded her hands on the table. Because that's how I do things. Not because you've earned it. The room was completely quiet. Webb stood, slowly, and the quality of his movement, the way a structure goes when the central tension fails, said everything the words hadn't. He left. 2 of his allies followed. The remaining board members looked at each other, then at Sophia, then back at the documents in their hands. Arthur Reyes, who had not spoken once during the entire sequence, now cleared his throat. Well, he said, in the tone of a man who had been waiting 11 months to be in the room when this happened. Shall we get started? 2 weeks later, the temperature climbed above freezing for the first time since November. The city moved differently in a thaw looser, more forgiving. The hard edges of everything softened slightly. Ethan was finishing an inventory shift at Denmore Logistics when his phone rang. Unknown number. Which usually meant a spam call about his car's extended warranty. But he answered because he had the cracked screen habit of answering everything. It's Sophia Carter, said the voice on the other end. He walked out to the parking lot, away from the noise of the loading dock. How are you? He said. Operational, she said, which made him almost smile. The board has ratified my restructuring proposal. Garrity is gone. We have a new head of IT who is, by all early indications, competent. Good. Diane has filed the documentation. It'll be a long legal process. But the core is secure. Good, he said again. A pause. Not uncomfortable, just the space that opens when the practical conversation has been covered and something else needs to happen. "I'd like to offer you a position," she said. "Director of Infrastructure Security. The role has been vacant since Garrity left. And based on what you demonstrated, I appreciate it," he said. "But no, a beat. Can I ask why?" He leaned against his truck. The parking lot was half empty, the afternoon light laying long across the remaining patches of snow. "Because I built a system," he said slowly, "around Lily's schedule. Her school hours, her after-school hours. The pickup time, the dinner hour, the being there hours. I built it carefully, and it works." He paused. "A director role at a firm like yours doesn't fit inside that system. Not without breaking something." "I see," she said. "I don't say that as a criticism." "I know," she said. "I'm thinking." A longer pause, this time the pause of someone who actually thought before speaking, which he'd noticed as a consistent quality. What if the role had different parameters? What if the hours were genuinely flexible, not the standard language of flexible that means call me whenever, but actually built around your schedule? "Jobs don't actually work that way. Most of them don't," she said. "I'm talking about one that does, because I have the authority to design it that way, and I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about why I haven't designed more things that way." He was quiet. "The work would be real," she said. "The compensation would reflect that. And there's a very small person who apparently left an impression on me that I haven't been able to fully process. And I find myself." She stopped, started again. "I find myself wanting to be in spaces where that kind of impression is possible." He didn't answer immediately. The afternoon light moved. "You'd have to meet Lily formally," he said finally. "She has opinions about people." "I know," Sophia said. "She told me I felt like a window." He paused. "She said that? While you were in the other room getting the tea. She's very direct." A pause. I looked it up. What she said about windows. "I think I understand it now." He looked at the sky over the parking lot, February blue, pale and clear. "I'll think about it," he said. "That's all I'm asking," she said. They said goodbye without excess. He stood for a moment in the parking lot, phone in hand, watching a pigeon navigate the remaining snow with small, determined steps. That evening, he picked Lily up from school at the regular time. She came through the door at a controlled run. The school had asked them not to run in the corridors, and threw her arms around him with her characteristic total commitment. "Daddy." "Hey, Bug." She leaned back and looked at him with those pale green eyes, her mother's inheritance. "Is Sophia coming for dinner?" she asked. He looked at her. "I haven't asked her," he said. Lily considered this. "You should," she said. She looked like she didn't eat enough. "That's not," he stopped. "You don't know that." She had hungry eyes, Lily said with complete certainty. "Not food hungry. Other hungry." He took her hand and they walked to the car. The afternoon was cold, but not bitter, the particular cold that promised something else on the other side of it. He thought about the bus stop on Meridian and Alt, the empty shelter, the snow, the shape of a person who had run out of options for the night. He thought about what Lily had said. Some people feel like wind, and some people feel like walls, and he thought that most people, if you gave them the right conditions and enough warmth and something worth leaning into, turned out to be neither. 3 weeks after that, Sophia Carter arrived at apartment 312 on Callaway Street at 7 p.m., carrying takeout containers from a Thai place on the corner and a completed section of a lighthouse puzzle that she had found in an antique shop on her lunch break, a different one, she clarified, not to replace the one they were already working on, just to have options. Lily received this information with the gravity it deserved. They ate dinner at the kitchen table, all 3 of them, the kind of dinner where no one has a particular role to play and nothing needs to be performed. Lily told them about a boy in her class who claimed to be afraid of butterflies and the class-wide debate this had generated. Sophia asked questions that Lily answered at length. Ethan cooked and ate and listened to the sound of 2 people talking in his kitchen and didn't think about what it meant or what it might become. He just let it exist. Afterwards, Lily fell asleep on the couch with the planet blanket and the stuffed rabbit. The lighthouse puzzle half assembled on the table, and the apartment warm and quiet around all three of them. Sophia stood at the window looking out at the street below. The bus stop was visible from here. The metal shelter. The yellow light above it. The empty seats. "It doesn't look the same," she said quietly. Ethan stood beside her, close enough to be present. "It's not," he said. She didn't turn from the window. Outside, the city moved in its usual way, indifferent, ongoing, full of people building systems around what they had and what they needed and what they were willing to lose. "I thought about what you said," she said. "About building things out of the right materials." He waited. "I've been doing it wrong," she said. "For a long time." A pause. "I thought the materials were strategic. Loyalty bought. Positions filled. Alliances calculated. And it worked, up to a point. And then it didn't. Most strategies eventually meet a night they didn't plan for," he said. She turned to look at him. In the amber light of the apartment, her face was different from the boardroom, different from the bus stop, different from the kitchen table at 3 a.m. It was simply a face, at the end of a difficult season, belonging to someone who had started learning something new. "Thank you," she said. "Not for what you did, for who you were while you were doing it." He considered that for a moment. "You're welcome," he said. Simply. Without the performance of humility, or the discomfort of receiving something directly offered. Behind them, Lily muttered something in her sleep, shifted under the planet blanket, and settled again. The city went on. The window held the cold out.